this is the next part of my construction of Blenkinsop's cog locomotive of 1812, which was called Salamanca, after the Duke of Wellington's victory at Salamanca in that year. And I've been attempting to work out some of the detail of the fittings between the two cylinders. Now I've got as far as here. As you can see, I've got a four-way pipe fitting there, and I've got what appears to be an exhaust pipe coming down the side. The part of the bogie that will actually operate the cogwheel is still in place. I haven't separated it out from the main model yet, and as you can see, the animation, although it's visually it's not right here, it should appear okay in trains. So this part I've got to separate out from the overall model, and of course I've got the two bogies. Those are the, well, axle blocks is I suppose the bearings there, and for the cogwheel there, those are separate at the moment. And if I just take that back to 0, so what I've been trying to do is to work out some of the detail, and you can see here I've added in a number of items, including these sort of hooks at each end, some of the detail on the cylinder tops, and also the cross pieces here. And you can see that there are some handles here, and these appear to be, you appear to be able to move these up and down to limit the amount of stroke that is taken from the cylinder. So presumably that is the way in which you change speed, because these cylinders appear to go at a standard rate, but if you have a long travel, then that would be quite slow. If you push it up, that would be a short travel. So these would describe a circle much more quickly, and that would change the, presumably that would change the speed. I've also been looking for illustrations of how these were actually manned, and I've seen one where we've got a character sitting on a seat, very much like an old mail coach seat, sitting out here with a sort of very typical coach driver's overcoat and hat, and I think that's a complete nonsense. I've also seen another where you actually have one man standing almost between these driving rods in here, in about the middle, which frankly I think is madness. I can't believe they ever did that. Another illustration shows one man standing here and another standing here. When I finish this model, I'm going to have one guy at the back here, and that'll be it, because just for sheer credibility. So I've looked at a number of images that are available online, and this is the part in the, if I go back to here, in here, this is the part which I'm sort of struggling with, or involved in doing, and it's not proving to be particularly easy, but I'm going to persevere. I just want to make sure I do have that exhaust pipe coming down on the same side as these handles, and yes I do, because this the actual driving cogwheel sits on the left hand side down here of this locomotive, and these other controls appear to be more based on the right. So I'm still dithering over this here. I'm going to sort of spoof it up, but now what I want to do is to find an image, one of these images, which shows me the so you can see I've been looking at models. This is a tremendous model, absolutely fantastic model that I found photographs online of Salamanca, made by a model engineer, and truly remarkable work, really excellent. And I was hoping I would be able to work out some of what's going on here by seeing what this engineer has done, model engineer has done to recreate. It's just amazing, beautiful work to recreate this, the controls and that. And so I'm going to try and use that wherever I can as a guide, but otherwise some of these illustrations are very, very limited indeed. I mean, I just can't, it's as if somebody has just, just sort of made it up as they go along, some of these illustrators. As you can see here, so those are the preserved wheel sections. I don't quite know what they are on this one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this control, or rather these controls here, which are on the cogwheel side, and I think are illustrated on the back. Yes, there they are. So what I'm going to do is simply make what I can of this. So I'm going to hide everything else and go into the make sure I've got texture correction on, yes, and so heavily pixelated as you can see, but it gives me a guide. So from what I can see, just extends. Okay, they're in a different direction to these, but it doesn't really matter. That's the handle there, and they're behind this vertical. So those are going to be next. Just trying to work out if that's actually a handle there. I think it is. This piece here is sitting the other side. Yeah, you can see it there. Are these some sort of filler caps perhaps? Those two of them. Oh well, my knowledge of how steam engines work is not brilliant by any means, but let's get working on this. So check again, just want to check again. It does just go to the end there. Okay, so I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use splines. So I'm going to make a rectangle, just the full length of it, and then I always have a look here, and I think that's meant to be 1 inch. Does seem to be, and I think that's meant to be 3'6". It's 3'7", just under at the moment, but if I take it back to 3'6", there does seem to be a lot of the measurements do appear to be imperial, the old imperial rather than metric. So it's a dreadful colour, isn't it? So let's just change that to something a little bit more visible and less unpleasant on the eye. Just remind myself it's only 1 inch by 3'6", so I'm going to make a circle, and I'm going to make that 1/2 inch in radius, not 5 inches. There we go. And let's just bring that down to here, make sure, and bring it along. So this is pretty straightforward. What I'm doing here is I'm just making a rod with curved, semicircular curved ends. Let's just make sure we got that right. Bring it over a little. Okay, there we are. And then let's just clone that over to the end here and zoom in and rotate 180, bring it in. Okay, then we'll turn this into a spline, and let's take out some segments, that one there and that one there. Okay, and then let's attach, there we are, and then let's just have a look at the vertices, just weld them up. I do them individually because if you just highlight them all, sometimes you get a real old mess in these tiny sizes. You've only got 1 inch here, so if you start mucking about, if I highlighted those, it would just pinch together. Show you. Oh, it's not going to do it. so it's not going to do it. Let's just go back, make sure I haven't done anything awful. Weld that. Okay, now we can extrude that. I think it should only extrude about 1 inch, maybe not even that. If it's 1 inch wide, I think about 0.5 of an inch. And let's just take it down here, get the position, and I think it needs to come this way a fair bit, and there we are. Now we know that it sits, let's see there, it sits behind these uprights. Back a bit further and further still. Okay, let's just look there. See if I've got anything in my, that's going to be okay. What I'm doing is I'm checking where it cuts the curve, where it's above the curve, so it's quite close to the cylinder itself, so I think it's about there by the looks of it. So let's see what. Okay, good. And do you have any indication? So there seems to be there's something there. This goes through. Have we got anything else that shows that really well? I always want to rotate these in 3D. Beautiful model, absolutely superb. See those, that cutaway there, I've just done that with a black, just basically just chopped in. That's the other side. That's the correct size, somebody else's model. Doesn't look like much of a handle there. Huh. Looks like a small handle, and I think if I just do a vertical drop there, I think there's a cut in there. Yep. So this actually connects down, and there's the handle. Brilliant. Such a good model. Okay, much better than mine. Never mind. So I'm going to put a handle in and then make those two pieces as well. Let's just check again. Comes in about okay, I've got to change this piece, so I'm going to take one of those, I'm going to clone it, and I'm actually going to use the Boolean function here, I think. So I need a box to cut out. How much do I need for it to cut out? It's not a lot. Let's just have a look. I can judge it by this vertical. It's about halfway, so that's 1, 2, 3. So I'm doing a fair bit of guessing here. Okay, let's just adjust this box. Let's make it 7 inches there, give it some more width. And looking down on it, so this is what I'm going to remove from this So let's make that a foot. Center it up. Make sure we're on the 0. There we are. Okay. Have a quick look. My crib. Okay. Let's do this. So, I'm going to convert this into a compound object, a Boolean object, and I can pick an operand B which will detract this box from this. Subtract, no, detract, subtract. There we are. Now sometimes you do get some funny effects with that, and I think I've got that here. Let's try and look at that a bit more closely. Top down, yeah, that's not right. I can see that. If I was to, let's just convert that back to an editable poly. That's not going to be correct. And you can see here there's even an angle. So what I'm going to do is remake this completely, and I'm going to use standard primitives, but I'm going to use splines. So my first step is to make a circle. Can't remember the radius of this, so we just have a quick go. It's already, you can see the distortion. It's 1'1" by the looks of it. Let's just center that. And position it. Yeah, that's way off. Just leave it like that for the moment, but I'm going to pull it back so that that top edge is correct. So it's even blown the centering there by doing that Boolean. The Boolean, it can be, you've got to be very cautious in using it. It can be helpful, but at the same time it can create quite a few problems. So now I'm going to create a rectangle. There we are, and let's see about that. That's a foot. That looks suspiciously like what it should be, and that looks suspiciously like it should be 4 inches. On the basis that I'm working to absolutes. And let's just colour that up a bit better, so it's actually, I can actually see what I'm doing. Now on the circle, turn that into a spline, and I'm going to refine it by adding additional vertices. Now these always turn off refine segments, so I'm going to take those 2 segments out. There's always a bit of movement when I do that. When I refine the vertex. So to get around that, once you've created it, you want to come in as close as you can. I'm at the maximum magnification here on the mouse wheel. Come on, I want Y. Don't mess me about. There we go. It won't make a lot of difference in the finished model, because it's not like that beautiful model for 3D full actual model. These very small measures, editable spline, and I'm going to lose that segment there. Okay, so now you can see where we're going with this. Let's pick up that was the cylinder, I don't want that. There's the circle, and I want to join it. So that box which I adjusted, weld it, okay, let's have a look. You can see here at this end the Boolean subtraction hasn't gone well. And here's my spline, so I'm just going to take it up to here. Make sure I've got the correct height for it. Let's just have a look in. And I'm just going to extrude that. Extrude it the other way. Now the extrusion setting was the one that I'd used previously, 1/2 inch, for the control bar. So take that up, and by the look of it, well, we can see now that there's the new version, and I'm going to delete the old poly. There we are. And just looking here at this model, which is my absolute guide, it looks like I've got planking strips across that way, so I shall immediately texture this. Here's my planking, and my first step is to pick up all of the faces, which is what I've got displayed here, and just take them down so that the smallest faces are just wood, and then select this face only, enlarge it, and I think it was going 90 degrees. Yeah, I think there's strips going across there, or at least that's the effect. There's no, doesn't look like there's joints, but they've maybe just been sanded out. So I'm gonna where are we? I'm gonna rotate this around, and just position it a bit better. And down a tad. Okay, so that gives me my new cylinder surround lid. Make sure we're, well, before I do anything with it, what I'm going to do is make a copy, just in case I really mess it up, and collapse everything down, and then line it up with my previous one, and it's called circle 10, so I shall, cylinder 11 can come away, there it is, and it doesn't fit. Let's have a look. Right, why doesn't it fit? Because I positioned it with the top, and I need to, oops, let's just pick up this one and center it up. So, for some reason that's not centering properly. Okay, let's try that again. No. This one wrong. The center is at 17493. No, it is centered there, so obviously this one is not quite as it should be. It also looks a bit smaller than the previous one. Anyway, there we are. I think that looks okay. Unhide. Okay. So for my other one, what I'll do, this is acceptable now. Take it down to a poly and just display those, and rotate this round. Just get the pivots right. Move it along. And then just position it by eye. It's because the number of faces on the top isn't the same as the number of faces on the cylinder. Again though, I think I can get away with that because there's the actual size of the locomotive within trains would be so small. Okay, and what else? Well, obviously I've got that cylinder still coming around there. That I think is going to get covered, all going to get covered in by the arrangement, whatever arrangement develops here. So I've also got two lids there, haven't I? So let's have circle 32, cylinder 12. There we are. So you can see I've got a void there at the moment that's going to get filled in, and it's also going to hide this bit of this surrounding casing. Okay, so my next job I think is to try and do something about this control bar of some sort. And first thing I think is I'm going to make a cylinder. Nice and big. We don't want 5 height segments. This can come down to 12. The radius wants to be 0 feet and ½ an inch. And it doesn't want to be quite as long as that. I think about 6 inches long. And let's just position it and bring it along to this far end here. Make sure we're in the right location. I can't even see it there. I see. Yeah, there it is. Come out this way. 6 inches is maybe a bit long. Let's cut it down to 4. There we are. And just get the position right in. Okay, and I can not it as the cylinder. I can take it down, and I'm just taking that poly off, that face there off, because it's into the control arm, whatever that is. Make sure we're not too positioned right. Okay, so there's that one, and now what I want to do here, just check again, that just sort of comes down, there's a, okay, so they don't actually come out into this bit here, which I saw on a previous photograph. There's this arrangement which I've got to recreate coming in here. It's something to do with the exhaust from the cylinder, must be, like, because there's a handle and it's pulling it back and forth, cranking it, and this is the exhaust. What a system. thing is, Blenkinsop, like so many of them, was just finding his way. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this. Was just finding his way, and I'll take off the extrusion, and I'm going to edit the segments. No, I'm not going to edit the vertices. I'm going to take that vertex out, and then I'm going to bring that to the vertical. Ditto. Should get close to snapping into place. Yeah, Blenkinsop and all the others were all experimenting at the time, and this is what makes these locomotives so interesting, because you can see their thoughts and their sort of the ways in which they're attempting to adapt and change and basically just get things to work. I think we're looking at about 80 degrees there. So I'm prepared to live with that, 80 degrees. Well, let's just take these up. So my 80 degrees is just going to be nonsense. Yeah, I should have done this before I moved it. 80 degrees. Never mind. Take these back. And the reason why I should have, well, I can still rotate it. Let's put get the pivots back. Okay, and let's try and see if I can just rotate it upright. Yeah, ooh, it's a bit. Is that upright? No, it's a slight lean. So let's just take these, and at this detail, I'm just basically guessing. At this amount of detail. Just going to bring that down a bit. Okay, and then I think those sort of, yeah, just sort of, just trying to judge this. I don't want to get too fussy over it all. Two minds about that. I think actually what I need here, looking at it again, so I'm going to take out the extrusion, and I think I need to refine this so that it's got a circular piece, just where the next one comes. In other words, what I'm doing is that piece there, and there's the handle. So what I'm thinking is that this, which has disappeared virtually, needs to come, and just position it there for the moment, but it actually stands proud. I think it needs to be a larger diameter. Let's go 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, I think that that's what's needed, both here and at each end. Is it that substantial? Yeah, on that it certainly shows it. So what I'm going to do is take this over to the end. I'm going to redo this each end here. But what I'll do is I'll do this end and then clone it over to here. So I'm still into let's just make sure we're all lined up. Right, I think what I need to do is to take 1, 2, no, cancel, use the wrong key, and that, and I need to hide everything. And I need to make sure that these are all on exactly the same position, because if you start adding these in and they're all over the place, you've had it. It looks okay. If those circles are over here, then oh dear, you're in a mess. Okay, right. So you might think, well, goodness me, he's going round the world for a shortcut here. Does it really deserve all this? I think it does. I do like these early locos, and I think they deserve to have a halfway decent representation within trains if I possibly can. I mean, there is a limit to the detail you can put in. I do appreciate that. I'm just adding in extra vertices here. You see how that jumped? Even though I wasn't. And I'm going to take out that segment. And then I'm going to adjust these. Just going to bring that down. I'm in the greatest magnification when I'm doing these points. Just try and get it something like right. I do find with Gmax, and indeed with other 3D modelling, that sometimes all the information they give you actually obscures what it is you're trying to achieve. So you can see what I've done here is I've enlarged the curved end to give me that nice finish, create a proper rod, control rod, and I'm going to take that over to this end and I'm going to rotate it and then move it in, and I'm just adjusting this by eye. And then this one gets more vertices. I'm not too worried about their position at the moment because I'm going to adjust that. I need to segment up the spline as a whole. Take these out. You might sort of think, well, what a lot of faffing about just for something that's so small, but it's that sort of detail which adds to the character of these models. That one's okay, I think. Now the only one that I've got to be concerned about now is this one, and make it a spline. And first step is to add the vertices that I need. Okay, so this all might seem a bit pedantic or whatever, but it adds to the character of the locomotive, and I find it more satisfying if I can make it as the best that I can. There's some things which you just have to, as it were, you know, lift your back to, the old freaking expression, and you just can't do it. But for this, I think it's worth making these rods, which are going to be so prominent, but they're not going to be moving or anything. You're not going to be able to adjust them, but they will give character to the locomotive. Now I'm just doing this one quickly. Take out this segment. You can see where I'm going. Back to the vertices. Zoom in. And again. then I'm going to extrude the whole thing 1/2 inch. But it's as you dissect these engines you begin to realise just how extraordinary these early pioneers were in the development of, just attaching those now, development of the locomotive, and how vital they were in that development. Without their work, all the ones that later are remembered as the pioneers, like locomotion or rocket, they all built upon the experience of these earlier engineers, Blenkinsop and Headley, Trevithick. So you can see there now I've got a much more suitable control rod, and you can see I'm up to number 6, or 5 and 6 rather, making sure that I'm keeping all the previous versions. Okay, and let's extrude, and 1/2 inch, that's correct. Let's have a look. Okay, so that looks a bit better. Okay, we've still got our handle in the correct place, and what I'm slowly doing now is building up this arrangement here. Whatever it did, it must be something to do with controlling the exhaust from the cylinders. And that's where I'm going to leave this video now, and I'm going to continue with adding in more of these control rods and trying to sort out this. So hopefully in the next video which I post, I'll have most of this done, and I'll also have separated, or be in the process of separating out this part of the animation and putting the bogies together, and who knows, we might even begin to see some part finished locomotive in trains. And because the other things I've got to do is the detailing for each end of the boiler and this container at the front here, which I believe is actually metal. Well, that's certainly how that model maker had done it, model engineer had done it, and it's hollow, and there's a drip feed and various pipes and some other side valves as well, to add these little valves here to add to the model. But that's it for this update on the Blenkinsop locomotive. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give me a thumbs up or a nice comment, or if you're not a subscriber already, please subscribe and look out for the next posting.